variety show. Remember when shows like Ed Sullivan and Carol Burnett featured many different acts or skits during the show, a true variety show? Well, now that format is back, enjoy this premiere episode of the variety show, and share it with friends. Now sit back and enjoy the show.
The original 1960 Psycho, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, immortal classic, Tony Perkins as Norman Bates at the Bates Motel, Janet Leigh as Marion Crane. What can you say? Suspense classic based on Robert Bloch's book. It has stood the test of time. There was a 90s color remake, Gus Van Sant, of course, but the immortal classic will always be the original Psycho by Hitchcock. Master of suspense. The shower scene alone has endless cuts, endless editing. There were a lot of different angles. He went into that. There was a young woman who was a substitute for Janet Leigh in part of the filming of the shower scene, because there were certain nude scenes that Janet Leigh was not comfortable with. So Marley, and I'm going to do something on her, Marley Renfro, who does have a book out and she does go to conventions, was the stand-in. Stunt woman, shall we say, who did parts of the shower scene during the filming, parts that Janet Leigh wouldn't do. All of that notwithstanding, for many years after Psycho, Janet Leigh herself was afraid to take a shower and preferred to take a bath instead. And this was true of a number of women, including my mom. When she saw the movie when it first came out, she was afraid to take a shower after that. And a number of different women had that same response. It hit a visceral nerve in audiences across the nation. And a few years later, when it made a comeback through the theaters, through the drive-in theaters, when I was a child, my parents took me, and the shower scene initially scared me so bad as a 4-5-year-old. I had to cover my eyes up during parts of the shower scene. But the movie stays with you. It has become a cult classic. As I grew up, it became one of my favorite films as an adult. So if you haven't seen the original Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock, I strongly recommend it. Cannot give it too many superlatives. It ranks up there in the top 10 movies, as far as I'm concerned, of all time. And this has been Rich Vernadeau with a review of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho.
It's an unbelievably terrifying experience, but you must see all this for yourself, if you're brave enough. You'll never forget the creature without a head, controlled by an insane artificial brain. When you see the most shocking screen experience of them all, Beast of Blood. Blood on Satan's Claw and The Beast in the Cellar. together in a chill-filled festival of horror. Both films rated R.
Now everything was ready. Who would be...
You've lost the urge to experiment.
By Vernadeau. I'm reviewing Horror of Dracula, the Hammer classic from 1958. This was the first pairing of Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing as mortal enemies, with Peter Cushing playing Dr. Van Helsing, and of course, in the iconic role of Dracula, Christopher Lee. There were a series of films after that, and I've done another review that deals with them. Hammer Films review, and you should also watch it as well. This was classic in so many ways. It's Terence Fisher. Fabulous score, fabulous music. Even that score was released on LP album during the 60s and was available. This movie made it through all the major theaters and, of course, drive-in theaters. One of the reviews that I have seen talks about the audience having a visceral reaction, a gasping at the death scene, you know, when the sunlight strikes Dracula. Iconic in so many ways and so many levels, wonderful special effects for its time. And it stays true. It goes back to the original Bram Stoker source material and the whole Jonathan Harker diary thing. Fabulously done, well done. Many consider it the best of the Christopher Lee Dracula movies, and it's a movie that if you haven't seen, you owe it to yourself to definitely go see it. Many other Dracula films pale by comparison, and I strongly recommend Horror of Dracula, a Hammer film with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. Thank you. This has been based on the novel The Werewolf of Paris by Guy Endore. Curse of the Werewolf is a 1961 Hammer Films production release starring Oliver Reed in the lead role.
A baby who grew into a man possessed by a monster.
Fantastic for its time, great special effects, one of the banner werewolf movies. Clifford Evans, Yvonne Romaine, Catherine Feller also star in this classic Hammer horror film, directed by Terence Fisher, who also did most of the Dracula films, which starred Christopher Lee. Vernadeau here with a tribute to Harry Dean Stanton, a very prolific actor who was in many movies and TV shows. I'll read off a few of his credits in a minute. He died yesterday at the age of 91. He was in the iconic film Paris, Texas, and I had the pleasure of meeting the director, William Wenders, briefly. That's a whole different story, and I'll do an episode about that at some point. Harry Dean Stanton was in Alien. He was in The Avengers. He was in The Green Mile. His credits go on and on. A long, successful career, both in movies and television. The TV series Alice. He was in that, the mini-series. The Good Life. His credits go on and on. If you take a look at IMDb, it's amazing. Of course, many people remember him for Pretty in Pink with Molly Ringwald, an all-time classic. He was even in episodes of Laverne and Shirley, the TV series. Private Benjamin, Escape from New York. The man has an illustrious catalog of screen appearances, and so this tribute to Harry Dean Stanton, who has passed away at the age of 91. Thank you very much.